Right, let's talk about UFC 250. So look, when this event was announced, it was an event that I kind of was underwhelmed by, to be honest. I just kind of thought to myself, come on, man, you can do better than that. This is a milestone event. 250 should be an event that is held in high regard. And we should have a lot of names on this card, and we should have a lot of fights that kind of really titillate you, really titillate you. And I didn't really get titillated when I read the names on the card. But as the event drew closer, I started getting titillated because I liked the bantamweight dynamic on this card. I liked the kind of the meaning behind the three bantamweight fights on the card. Do you know what I mean? Almost like the good, the bad, and the ugly, but like not quite that. Three other words I might think of during this video. So yeah, I was interested, and come Saturday night, I was like looking forward to the fights. And the reason why my interest grew is as time grew closer to the event, I spent more time looking at the fighters, looking at the fights on the card, and kind of getting excited about what it would mean if each of the fighters won their fight on the card, if that makes sense. So whoever put this together, good job to you, mate. Good job. This is what they call in boxing a trade card, where you've got fights that are really, really exciting for the purists or the hardcore fans. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, it lived up to my expectations when I woke up on this morning, Sunday morning. Now, before I get into just kind of recapping or reacting to the card, I just quickly want to say I was talking to my guy Eddie on WhatsApp on Saturday, and we were just kind of exchanging ideas about the event, about the card, and just kind of discussing a little bit what we thought might happen. And I mean, it means nothing now, but some of the things that I was kind of musing about in my head before the event happened, my predictions were correct. Do you know what I mean? And I really, really, really regret not making a video about it, because I picked all of the winners on the main card. So yeah, so what I'm gonna do is just let you guys know what I thought was gonna happen before the fight, and then talk a little bit about what actually happened. So let's start. Let's get into it. Sean O'Malley against Eddie Wineland. So for me, this fight basically was a case of how close to the top of the hill is Sean O'Malley, and how far over the hill is Eddie Wineland. The answer to that question would be in who wins the fight. Do you know what I mean? And I just felt that Sean O'Malley would win, because every time he's given an opponent, he steps up in terms of the quality of his opponent. But he doesn't just step up by winning that fight. He does it emphatically. So it's like in your head you have a ceiling of, all right, so this opponent is just this good. But because he beats that guy so emphatically, you just don't know where Sean O'Malley's ceiling is. And I just felt that Eddie Wineland is a guy that had a style that was a good matchup for Sean O'Malley. What I didn't think would happen is Sean O'Malley getting a win by KO in the first round, and he called it. He called it before the actual fight. He said he'd beat him in the first round, and he did it. And the reason why I didn't think Sean O'Malley would beat him in the first round is I felt Eddie Wineland, obviously he's a veteran. I just felt like Eddie Wineland would not struggle so much with Sean O'Malley's speed and his length. Do you know what I mean? I felt that there might be parts of the fight where Eddie Wineland is able to expose gaps in Sean O'Malley's ability. I felt that this was a sufficient step up for Sean O'Malley, and we'd see what Sean O'Malley needs to improve on. Keep burping. What ended up happening is Sean O'Malley getting one of the best knockouts I've seen in a matter of months. And again, we still haven't been exposed to the ceiling of Sean O'Malley, because he just looked very dominant. and he just looked levels above opposition like Eddie Wineland. So literally there's nothing to critique when it comes to Sean O'Malley's performance last night. He'll be ranked now, and I feel like someone like John Dodson would be a good opponent for Sean O'Malley. I feel like John Dodson is extremely fast. He's a good mover, and John Dodson has the wrestling capability. So it's a guy that will hopefully try to mix it up, and it will give us a look at what Sean O'Malley is able to do on the ground in grappling exchanges, etc., etc. Now, obviously, there's going to be a very, very, very big height difference that John Dodson might struggle with. So we might not even be able to see that. But I think John Dodson is a live opponent. He's an opponent that has power. And he's an opponent that can put Sean O'Malley in dangerous predicaments throughout a fight between the two. So that's a fight that I'd like to see next for Sean O'Malley. Moving on, look, I'm going to be honest, I didn't even watch the Neil Magny and Rocco Martin fight, and the reason is I fucking fell asleep. I fell asleep, and then I woke up just in time for the Aljamain Sterling Sandhagen fight, and I haven't even watched it back today, because obviously when I saw it was I saw the result, and I was just too excited about this whole bantamweight dynamic. So this morning I watched back the Garbrandt and the Sterling fight and the Sean O'Malley fight. So yeah. So let's just go into the Aljamain Sterling fight. So look, going into this fight, this is the fight that I was most excited about, because there were a lot of unknowns, and I'll tell you what I thought the unknowns were. For Sandhagen, I felt that he had fought guys that are very traditional and orthodox in the way they move, guys that were considerably smaller than Sandhagen. So Sandhagen was able to use his reach, and he's a very, very, very technical striker. So it wasn't just that he was able to use his reach, he's able to time his opponents, and he's able to get a read on his opponents, and he's actually got a really good fight IQ. So he sets traps and exposes gaps in his opponents that he then takes advantage of, whether it's a body kick, whether it's a punch to the body, whether it's just his jab, and then opening up opportunities to throw kind of power punches, hooks and stuff like that. He also showed that he has a level of ability when it comes to grappling, avoiding being taken down, avoiding submissions, etc., etc., and working positions where an opponent is trying to get a submission and flipping that out by grappling and scrambling and ending up in a advantageous position. That's quite a mouthful. What I saw his keys to victory would be Aljamain Sterling likes to level change a lot. He likes to mix it up. And I felt that Corey Sandhagen could potentially catch him trying to go for a takedown with a knee or a kick to the head. Another area where I thought he could expose Aljamain Sterling is Aljamain Sterling's movement is very unorthodox. So he likes to switch from orthodox to southpaw quite a bit, but there's also lots of pockets of time Aljamain Sterling stands square on to his opponent, and one of Sandhagen's biggest tools is striking to the body, and that would leave when Aljamain Sterling square on, that would leave a big target for Sandhagen to aim at. I felt that if Aljamain Sterling wasn't able to get a takedown, wasn't able to engage Sandhagen in extended grappling exchanges, if Sandhagen was able to kind of shake him off and get in a position where they reset again, and Aljamain Sterling has to come back in again, and Aljamain Sterling's using his movement but being square on, I felt Sandhagen could find opportunities to hit the body with kicks, punches, etc., and start softening him up. Because I felt Aljamain Sterling, the way he fought against Munoz in the last fight, I felt that he did fatigue a little bit. And I felt that if that was going to happen, then Sandhagen could use that to his advantage. Aljamain Sterling, on the other hand, I've just seen him improve fight after fight. For me, he started off as a guy that his primary kind of focus or primary method of attack was grappling and wrestling, trying to get his opponent to the ground. He's turned into a guy that is a very, very competent striker. His footwork and movement has changed quite a bit over the years. He's very unorthodox, and it's difficult for his opponent to get a read on him because he's very, very active when it comes to throwing strikes and landing strikes. He's constantly throwing, he's constantly trying to push his opponent on the back foot, and he's constantly the one being the aggressor. I just, for Aljamain Sterling's sake, I wasn't sure whether he could implement that game plan against Corey Sandhagen, just because Sandhagen's slightly taller, and I felt that if he did try to throw a flurry of strikes as he's trying to close the distance, he might expose himself to getting hit back and getting hit back hard by Sandhagen. What I saw an advantage for Aljamain Sterling was the fact that we haven't seen Corey Sandhagen fight someone that has the movement of an Aljamain Sterling, whereas Sandhagen's movement, although it's very technical and the way he manages distance is top tier, he's able to do that against kind of rudimentary strikers, guys that aren't at the same level as Sandhagen and guys that aren't at the same level as Aljamain Sterling. So I felt that Aljamain Sterling would be able to potentially give Sandhagen a look that he would struggle with. I also knew that Aljamain Sterling, and you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know this, but I also felt that Aljamain Sterling, his wrestling, his grappling is levels beyond Sandhagen. Although Sandhagen has shown kind of defensively he's sound, again, we haven't seen him in there with someone that has the ability, in my opinion, of Aljamain Sterling, and also the size and strength of Aljamain Sterling. Going into the fight, I thought Aljamain Sterling would win. I thought he would win because I feel like he was clearly, obviously, the more experienced fighter and a guy that's been in there with better quality oppositions. And I just felt that Corey Sandhagen had a look that Aljamain Sterling had seen before, whereas I didn't think Corey Sandhagen had ever been there with someone at the same level or kind of technical, not even ability, or the style of Aljamain Sterling. The way the fight played out, that shocked and surprised me. I didn't see it happening the way it actually happened. And the reason being is I didn't see I knew Aljamain Sterling was going to be the one trying to put pressure on, but I thought the way he'd put pressure on is by using his unorthodox footwork to come into range, strike, come out of range, come back into range, strike, maybe level change, basically by mixing it up, but by coming in and out of range. What we saw was Aljamain Sterling putting the pressure on, using his movement, but staying within striking distance. And we didn't see moments in the fight where he took a step back and both guys reset and then Aljamain Sterling came back again. He constantly put the pressure on Sandhagen, and with that, Sandhagen was constantly on the back foot. Now, one of the things that I said earlier, Corey Sandhagen saw Aljamain Sterling face on with him, exposing that kind of body area, and he threw a body kick, which is something I expected. But the way Aljamain Sterling caught that kick and managed to secure the takedown, I was impressed with it. I didn't think that Aljamain Sterling would be able to get a takedown that easily and that quickly. Now, obviously, Corey Sandhagen almost did get up, but in that process, he exposed his back, which Aljamain Sterling took and got the body triangle in, and the rest was his. Once that body triangle was in, and Aljamain Sterling was lying on his back, and he had that neck there, it was just a matter of time. A very, very, very impressive victory for Aljamain Sterling. Like I said, he's just been improving fight after fight, and he is very, very, very deserving of a title shot. I just like those guys, to be honest. I like Al Quinta, I like Sterling. I like the way they are, I like their personality, and I like watching them fight. And I'm just really happy for Aljamain Sterling, man. It was a very, very good performance. Cody Garbrandt and Rafael Assunção. So going into this fight, I was concerned for Cody Garbrandt. I like a couple of weeks ago, I just looked at Cody Garbrandt and I thought, fucking hell, mate, you're a mess. And the reason why I thought he was a mess is because he was talking about going down to 125 pounds. And then, you know, he's been training with Mark Henry. And I always struggle to say Mark Henry. And the reason I struggle to say Mark Henry is because every time I'm about to say that name, something in my brain clicks in and says, no, his name's not Mark, it's John. And I don't know why. Do you know what I mean? And also I struggle to call him Mark Henry because Mark Henry is sexual chocolate, the strongest man in the world. There is only one Mark Henry, but apparently there's two, because this Mark Henry is equally as talented in a different arena. But anyway, so he'd been training with Almeida and Mark Henry, and I just felt like he was a little bit kind of all over the place, if I'm honest. I just felt that clearly he's physically talented enough to make a run for the championship again. However, has he done the growing and grown in the levels of maturity he needs to grow in to allow him to put himself in a position to challenge for the belt again? Does that make sense? Because what I kind of gleaned from his 3 losses was one thing that a lot of people were talking about is his lack of chin. I didn't really buy into that so much, because those 3 defeats were him getting caught on the offensive and him totally abandoning basic defensive principles to land a strike. And they say the ones that hurt the most are the ones that you don't see coming. And with his body momentum pushing forward towards his opponent, going into his opponent's strike, whether it was a head kick or a punch, that was what was the unraveling of Cody Garbrandt, as opposed to just a weak chin. Like, you never seen him get knocked down in a exchange where he's got both his hands up, he's kind of well balanced, and his opponent just kind of lands a strike. Does that make sense? Like, he gets hurt when he's being aggressive, when he's the one who's trying to land a strike and he misses and his opponent times him, similar to how he ended up beating Rafael Assunção, to be honest. That's how you see Cody Garbrandt get hurt. I was worried for Cody Garbrandt because I thought if he hasn't done the growing in his head that he needs to do, then Assunção is an opponent that is going to expose that. Because Assunção is a guy that likes to counter hit. He's a guy that has the ability to hurt you, and he's a guy that has the ability to time you coming in. And it's a dangerous fight, man. Like, you got to give it to Cody Garbrandt. He could have easily not taken that Assunção fight, and he could have fought someone lower down the rankings in the bantamweight division. So I rate him for just accepting the fight to start with. The reason why I felt that Garbrandt was going to win this fight going into the fight is I saw him talk in interviews, media scrum, etc. during the week of the fight. And a lot of fights say things that you see during the fight aren't actually true. For example, just recently, Tyrone Woodley, he talks it up quite a bit, but he wasn't able to deliver come fight night against Gilbert Burns. But something in me just believed what Cody Garbrandt was saying, and the stuff that he was talking about in terms of him needing to fall back in love with the sport. And again, that's a cliche when it comes to combat sport, because a lot of guys say this, but for some reason I bought what he was saying. I bought what he was saying when it came to him discussing Mark Henry, and he spoke about the fact that he has the technical ability, he just needs to get his mind right. He kind of addressed it in interviews. And that was something that I liked to see. And just quickly touching on the fact that he, didn't spend his entire camp at Team Alpha Male. Like, it's all like this discussion of loyalty is all well and good. But if you look at the head coaches that Team Alpha Male have had over the years, the number of head coaches they've had, like, what is he being loyal to? He's had, like, Campman was the head coach there for a bit. Then Dwayne Ludwig. Justin Buckles was always their kind of A coach, and then he became head coach. Like, that team, that coaching staff seems to change on an annual basis. What is he being loyal to? A badge and a building, a logo and a building. Like, he's loyal. It seems like he's loyal enough to his training partners. Do you know what I mean? When your coaching staff is constantly changing, then you have to stand back and say, look, this isn't really good for me and my career. I've got to find someone that I can gel with, that I can say, this is my coach. Like, the whole like, if you're training with I don't know, Jackson Wink, it's not the building, it's not the logo, it's Jackson Wink that you're training with. Those are your coaches. Whereas Team Alpha Male seems to be the building and the logo, and the coaches are interchangeable. But that's not how it should work, because if you have an affinity towards a coach, if you have a relationship with a coach, and that coach moves on, then that literally changes everything. So I understand Cody Garbrandt's decision to split up his time, and it worked for him. It paid dividends. So I just felt that going into the fight, that we would see a switched on Cody Garbrandt, and we would see a guy that... So for me, I feel like, and it's difficult to say this, like when he lost against Munoz and TJ Dillashaw those 2 times, I felt like his mind was in a place where he felt that he is 100% the best fighter in the world. He's the best man at that weight class, and no one can beat him. And all he's got to do is go out there and land, and he will beat his opponent. Which all might be true, but you're not fighting just yourself in it. You're fighting an opponent. So the opponent has their own game plan and their own methods of inflicting damage on you. And I felt like he was ignoring that too much in those fights. And I'm not saying that if he fought more defensively in those 3 fights, he would have 100% won. But I think he took away a high percentage of the chance of him winning by being too aggressive, by being too offensive, and by not putting defensive principles high up in his priority list when he fought. And I felt that he was going to be able to do that after hearing him talk in fight week. So when the fight actually came and the way it played out, I was surprised by Garbrandt that he was still so offensive, but doing it so well technically. I was expecting him to be a little bit tentative, but not tentative in a meek, scared way, but being tentative as in, all right, look, I need to win this fight, so let me just see what Assunção is going to bring to the table. Let me try and get a read on Assunção. But he was a guy that was always throwing the first strike, Cody Garbrandt, throughout the fight. And one thing, because how impressive that knockout was, one thing that's kind of got forgotten is the way he knocked Assunção down in the second round, about a minute before that. And even before that, there was I think that it might have been in the first round, there's a grappling exchange when Cody Garbrandt kind of closed the distance, they kind of hit the deck. Garbrandt got up first and landed that head kick as they were getting up. Like, Garbrandt was being offensive, but he wasn't being reckless while he was doing it. So Assunção was struggling with his speed, Assunção was struggling with the leg kicks, Assunção was struggling with just how Garbrandt was able to hit and not get hit. And the way the knockout came, clearly nobody was expecting that the fight to end the way it did. And this fight gave us 3 really, really top caliber finishes with Sugar Sean O'Malley, Aljamain and Garbrandt, man. Like, the way that finish came, he just fucking had him face down. It'll be interesting to see. Like, I don't think I talked about Aljamain Sterling, but he definitely deserves the winner of Peter Yan and Aldo. But a problem that I see potentially coming with Cody Garbrandt training with Mark Henry is Marlon Moraes is trained by Mark Henry, and that's an issue. Do you know what I mean? If Cody Garbrandt's going to continue training with Mark Henry, then something's got to give there. Because if I look at the bantamweight rankings, literally, honestly, I'm not just saying it because they got the same coach, but Marlon Moraes is a guy that I would love to see fight Cody Garbrandt. That's a fight that I would love to see. Because looking at the other names, obviously Peter Yan's fighting Jose Aldo. Assunção, he's just lost to Cody Garbrandt. Corey Sandhagen has just lost to Aljamain Sterling. I wouldn't like to see Sandhagen fight Garbrandt just yet, because I feel like Sandhagen is still kind of learning a lot, and I still think that he has the potential to make another run. So I feel like he needs to go back and fight a couple of guys that are ranked lower down in the division to help him build that experience. Pedro Munoz, obviously, he's a guy that has, beaten Garbrandt. You got Jimmy Rivera, who I don't think would be much of a matchup for Cody Garbrandt, if I'm honest with you. And then you're going back, Dominic Cruz, Cody Stamman, John Dodson, like I mentioned before. I think Garbrandt against Marlon Moraes would be the perfect next fight. Whether it actually happens, who knows? But well done to Garbrandt. And you know what? It's easy to be humbled when you're coming off a loss, never mind 3 losses. Now, whether this win gets blown out of proportion in his own mind, and whether he starts reverting back to that version of himself that lost to Dillashaw twice, lost to Munoz, whether that happens to him, whether he gasses himself up, that would be interesting to see. It's easily done. We've seen fighters do that before. Amir Khan kind of springs to mind, a boxer that gets a win and then he kind of gasses himself up and he starts ignoring his defensive duties during a fight. Sorry, I'm just looking over there because the UFC, I've still got the UFC player and I just watched the Garbrandt knockout again. But yeah, so it'd be interesting to see who they match him up with next. But for me, I'd love to see Marlon Moraes against Garbrandt next. And then we move on to the actual main event. Look, I'm not going to lie to you guys, man. I watched the fight. But before the fight, I didn't really know much about Felicia Spencer. I remember seeing her fight against Cyborg. But aside from that, the featherweight division, the gulf between where Amanda Nunes is and the rest of the pack is fucking... It's night and day, innit? It's like there's such a big gap between her and the rest of the division. I don't really pay attention to featherweight fights that happen in the female featherweight division because I just know Amanda Nunes is just better than all of them. It's the same situation in the bantamweight division for women. Like you see 135 pounders fight each other and I don't really pay attention because I think, well, what's the point? Because she's just going to fight Nunes and Nunes is just going to beat the brakes off her. And this isn't a slight on Nunes. She's clearly like one of the best fighters, either gender, on the planet. Do you know what I mean? Like in terms of comparing her to the rest of her weight class. Like she's one of the best. But it's just not exciting, like contemplating this person might beat Nunes or this person might be the one because it's not that, is it? Like when it comes to the 115 pound, it's the same thing at 125 pounds with women in the UFC because you got Valentina Shevchenko, who again is streets ahead anyone else in that weight class. So watching a fight at 125 pounds, it's just a bit like, well, what's the point? Because she's not going to be good enough to beat Bullet. The 115 pound division, on the other hand, when it comes to women, is something that I do look forward to, and I do enjoy watching two females fight in that weight class because, like, you've got 4 or 5 girls there that have the potential and ability to be champion. And it's not Shevchenko's fault and it's not Nunes' fault that they're just that fucking good. They're just that good and they're just that ahead of the pack. They're that much better than their competition. It just makes watching them fight not very exciting. However, watching Nunes just basically beat Spencer up for 25 minutes. I mean, it was fun to see Nunes display how well-rounded she is and how fucking physically strong she is and how technically sound she is when it comes to striking. I don't know whether there's going to be another woman in the next 5-10 years at those weights, 135 and 145 pounds, that are ever going to be as good as Nunes. Like, Nunes obviously isn't at the end of her career, but when she does choose to retire, whenever that may be, I don't know whether there will be another female that will be at the same level that Nunes has managed to achieve. Again, another dominant victory by Nunes. There's not really much to kind of break down. It was just her having her way with Spencer for 25 minutes. But yeah, overall a very, very exciting card. Fights that I really enjoyed watching. Like I said, I really enjoyed this whole dynamic in the bantamweight division. We've seen Sean O'Malley announce himself as a genuine potential contender moving forward, someone that is going to be a ranked guy who's kind of moving up that division. We've seen Garbrandt say, "Yeah, I must have forgot just how good I am." We've seen Garbrandt tell the world that he is on the brink of another title challenge. And we've seen Aljamain Sterling reaffirm the fact that he is the number one contender. Like, I know Jose Aldo's fighting Peter Yan, but that fight should have always have just been Aljamain Sterling against Yan. But it doesn't matter, because it gives Aljamain Sterling more time to improve, and it kind of just reinforces just how good he is by the way he was able to perform against Corey Sandhagen. But yeah, those are my thoughts for UFC 250. Don't be scared to like this, share this with a friend, subscribe if you haven't already. Go in the description of this video, you're going to see a load of links to my podcast on different platforms. So just click the one that suits you the best and subscribe to my podcast. And yeah, I think that's it. I'll catch you guys next time.